I'm going to share with you how I lost 90 pounds over my weight loss journey. And I'm really going to do a deep dive, and I'm going to share with you the specifics about my mindset and my routine as well as my diet, because I get a lot of questions about exactly what I ate on my weight loss journey. So I'm going to share that with you. Now, if you're new here, I'm Ursula. I lost 70 pounds in 9 months. After losing that weight, I had a tummy tuck. I had 1.5 pounds of skin removed because it was impacting my workouts. I then went on to lose an additional 16 pounds. So for this time around on my weight loss journey, I lost approximately 90 pounds. I started this weight loss journey in May of 2023, and I was 218 pounds. I decided that I really needed to have a different mindset this time around if I wanted it to stick long term. So one of the things I decided was I'm just not going to do anything that I had done in the past, because those things might have worked in the short term, but they got me back to 218 pounds. And so I just was not going to do anything that did not work before. One of those things was to follow fad diets or specific eating styles. Now, a lot of them, you've heard of them before, you've probably done them yourself, but I have tried everything. I've tried low calorie, I've tried low fat, I've tried low carb, I've tried keto and Atkins and OMAD and intermittent fasting. And again, a lot of them worked in the short term. I just wasn't able to follow them long term and really make it a lifestyle change. Another thing that I decided to do this time around was to stay off the scale. Now, I am scale queen. I actually have 3 scales in my house, and that's another story for another day. But I used to get on the scale every single day, sometimes multiple times per day, and it was the same routine. I would get up in the morning, I would use the bathroom, I would take off all my clothes, and I would get on the scale. And if I didn't like that number on the scale, I would move the scale around the room and I would get on it again. And sometimes I would do it again, as if moving the scale around the room would help. But this is what I did, and obviously it didn't help. I still ended up 218 pounds. And so I decided this time around, I just was not going to focus on the number on the scale, that I just wasn't going to weigh myself at all. And so when I say that I started this weight loss journey at 218 pounds, that was the weight I was the day before at my doctor's office when they weighed me. I didn't even get on the scale this time around on my day 1. And again, I was just very committed to breaking that habit of weighing myself every day, being so focused on the number on the scale that I wasn't able to focus on what I was actually doing in order to lose weight. And that's really what I decided to do, was just to focus on not the outcome, but the progress, to really focus in on what specifically I was doing from day to day in order to lose weight, and not really worry about the results. I actually started my journey following the 75 Hard Challenge. And if you know anything about this challenge, you know it is a series of 6 tasks that you have to complete every single day. And I really am glad that I started off my weight loss journey with this challenge, simply because it forced me to focus on those tasks. And this challenge isn't a weight loss challenge. It's not a physical transformation challenge. It's actually a challenge that builds discipline. And I just had to be very disciplined in figuring out how I was going to get those tasks completed every day. And I didn't have time to focus on the progress. I only could focus on completing those tasks so that I could complete the challenge. And so that was one of the things that really helped me along in this weight loss journey, was saying, you know what? It doesn't really matter what the scale says. It doesn't really matter what my results are at the end. As long as I am doing what I'm supposed to do in order to lose weight, at some point in time, I'm gonna have to lose the weight. And so I just did not focus on the final result. I just focused on the actions that it would take to get to the final result. And finally, for this weight loss journey, I took the approach that I just simply would not quit. that my day one would be the last day one that I would have. You know, I could go back through my camera roll and I could find plenty of day one photos. I could find plenty of before photos. What I didn't have were after photos. I would give up and quit before I got to my after. I would quit before I got to the result. And so I just had to, you know, say, okay, enough with quitting. We know what happens when you quit. You don't have an after photo. Let's find out what happens when you just keep going. I vowed that that next day when I started this challenge and I started my weight loss journey, that would be my last day one. That it just didn't matter what happened on this weight loss journey, that I would just keep going. And that, I will tell you, I think has really truly been the key to my success. And routine is big for me. I'm a creature of habit, and it doesn't matter if that's a good habit or a bad habit. I tend to follow my habits. And so one of the things that I had to do this time around on my weight loss journey was to make sure I was following good habits. And one of those good habits was getting up early in the morning to get in a workout. Now, I started my journey following 75 Hard, and this challenge requires you to complete 2 workouts per day. They had to be 45 minutes each, and you couldn't combine them. They had to be at least 3 hours apart. And one of those workouts had to be outdoors. And so I really didn't have a choice but to get in a workout first thing in the morning, because I had to do 2 a day for 75 days in order to complete the challenge. I typically did my first workout as soon as I got up. Usually that was between 4 and 4:30. I would get up and I would either walk outside if it was light enough for me to walk outside, or I would walk on the treadmill that I have in my house. And I would get in my first workout that way. And then I would have to squeeze in that second workout at some point in the day. Sometimes I would get it in on my lunch break. Sometimes I would do it after work. You know, before on past weight loss journeys, the later in the day it got, the less likely it was that I was going to work out. And so this is a great habit, and it's one that I actually follow today. So whether it's during the week and I have to get up and go to work, or it's on the weekend, or I'm on travel or on vacation, the first thing that I do when I get up in the morning is I work out. I am intentional about movement, no matter what that looks like. And it could be, you know, walking on the treadmill, it could be running, it could be lifting weights, it could be stretching. Whatever I have planned for the day, I am typically doing it first thing in the morning. I also got into the routine of drinking water throughout the course of the day, and I also started that early, first thing in the morning. Now again, I started my journey on the 75 Hard challenge, and that challenge requires you to drink a gallon of water per day. That's an awful lot of water, and I can't chug water. So I had to be very deliberate about getting in my water throughout the course of the day, and I had to start extremely early. One of the tricks that I figured out, and it was towards the end of the challenge, but I figured it out nonetheless, was that if I set a bottle of water on my nightstand, that anytime I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night and it was after midnight, that I could drink some of that water sitting on the nightstand, and it would actually count towards the next day's water because it was after midnight. And so that was a period of time, like usually between midnight and 4:30, depending on what time I was getting up to work out. That was a period of time when I wouldn't otherwise be drinking water. But because, you know, I set this bottle on my nightstand, I was starting my water early. Another thing that I had to do on this weight loss journey was to focus on active recovery as well as sleep. And these two things are really important on a weight loss journey, but people tend to overlook it. Active recovery was important because I was working out twice a day, and even though for the most part I was walking both workouts, that tends to take a toll on your body after a while. And remember, I had to do this for a minimum of 75 days, and I ended up doing it for 116 days. And so some of those days I ended up not doing walking as a workout, but I would do active recovery activities things like stretching and foam rolling, where I was still moving my body, but I was also giving my body a break. I was also giving my muscles a rest and time to rebuild and repair themselves before the next workout. I also had to be very deliberate about sleep this time around and making sure that I was getting in at least 7 hours of quality sleep per night. Because believe it or not, your body waits until you're at a period of rest to perform those essential functions like fat burning and muscle repair and muscle building. So when you skip on the sleep, when you cut that time period short, then you're not maximizing your body's time performing those functions, and you're really hindering your own results. So you have to get in enough sleep per night, and that's quality sleep, not a restless sleep, right? It has to be a quality sleep. So I always recommend at least 7 hours per night, 8 to 9 if you can get them in, but a minimum of 7 hours of sleep. Now, when it comes to my diet and what I actually ate on my weight loss journey, I decided to focus on counting macros. So I didn't count calories. I counted proteins, carbs, and fats, and I mostly focused on counting protein, hitting a protein goal every day. I went to the TDEE calculator, plugged in my information, clicked on the cutting tab, and then I followed what was the moderate carb option. And I went with this option because I felt like it would give me a good balance of protein and carbs. And I didn't feel like that I would be cutting carbs too much and feeling like I was depriving myself of anything. So I went with the moderate carb option. I took those goals and I plugged them into MyFitnessPal, and I simply started to track what I ate. And what I found was that all I had to really do was focus on hitting the protein goal every day. And as long as I was eating nutritious foods, for my meals, then I could hit my protein goal for the day. And then the other macro goals I was also hitting as well. And I was starting to lose weight. Now, as far as the foods that I was eating and actually tracking through MyFitnessPal, I started to follow what was called clean-ish eating. And that's simply eating mostly whole, unprocessed foods or foods in their most natural state. I had learned to eat this way actually several years ago. I was following this meal plan, and that's what it called for. And it was a good variety of foods. The food was actually really good. I was really surprised. But it was a lot of food, but it was good quality, nutrient dense food. And I ended up going from 172 pounds to 163 pounds in 1 week. I lost 9 pounds in 1 week following this meal plan. And even now, I'm just coming off a marathon training, and I went back to this style eating, really cleaning up my eating. And I've lost 5 pounds in 1 week. And so it doesn't really matter if you have 10 pounds to lose or 100 pounds to lose. If you focus on the quality of food that you're eating, you don't necessarily have to cut the volume of food that you're eating in order to lose weight. If you are interested in checking out that meal plan that I'm actually following now, the one that helped me to lose 5 pounds this past week, click on the link in the video description and download that. But I was following this cleanish eating, and I cut out processed sugar. I was so addicted to that processed sugar or refined sugar or added sugar, whatever type of sugar you want to call it. It's not good for our bodies. And I felt that, I always had to eat sugar every single day. So this time around, as I followed this cleanish eating style, I cut out the processed sugar, and I was only eating natural sugars. I was eating fruits. I would eat honey. I would eat 100% pure maple syrup if my, recipe called for that. But I wasn't eating the cakes, the candies, the pies, the ice cream, all that good stuff that I liked, but did wreak havoc on my body. I cut that out completely. And I was really focused on, again, just this whole unprocessed natural food. Now, I didn't eat that way 100% of the time, which is why I call it clean-ish. Because, I did have to eat out sometimes. I had to be flexible. And that's really the reason why I decided to go with the macro-based eating was because I could be flexible. As long as I was eating foods that helped me stick to those macro goals, then I could kind of, either eat at home and prepare it at home to the extent possible, but then I could also eat out when I needed to eat out as well. So what a typical eating day looks like for me is I usually start off with a protein shake, and if I'm going to do cardio first thing in the morning, I usually don't have anything. I do cardio in a fasted state. But if I'm going to do strength training, then I'll sip on a protein shake while I'm strength training. But I'll definitely have a protein shake after my workout. Whether I'm doing cardio or strength training, I'll have a protein shake first thing in the morning. After that protein shake, then I am having my first real meal. I call it breakfast, and that's usually something like a 2-egg omelet that I prepare with veggies, and then I also have like a side of sliced avocado with that, so some good healthy fat. Mid-morning, I'll have a snack, so it's usually something like apples with peanut butter, or like an orange with almonds, or orange with walnuts, something that's really quick that I can pack really quick, take to work with me. For lunch, I usually have something like a tuna salad, and that's usually prepared with tuna packs and spinach. Then I'll have a mid-afternoon snack, and a lot of times, especially because I work in an office every day, my mid-afternoon snack tends to look just like my mid-morning snack. Sometimes it'll be different, but for the most part it's the same. And then when I get home, I'm having dinner, and dinner could look like a Mexican stuffed chicken peppers with a sweet potato or a bowl of chili. And I don't really like to eat after dinner, but if I'm craving something after dinner, if I want to eat something after dinner, it's got to be high protein. And so a lot of times I'll just simply reach for another protein shake. The protein shakes that I like to drink are 30 grams of protein. And anytime you're going to eat that close to bedtime, it should be high quality protein. My eating tends to follow this basic pattern of high quality protein, complex carb, and healthy fat. And I have found that as long as I stick to that blueprint for my eating style, I'll lose weight. I was able to lose 30 pounds in the first 75 days following this eating style. And again, I went on to lose 70 pounds in 9 months and 90 pounds overall. And I am again proving that this style of eating works. I've already lost 5 pounds over this past week. So this style of eating definitely works. And again, if you want to find out what this eating style is all about, click on the link in the video description and check that out. At the end of the day, I just feel like me making the decision that I was going to go in a different direction. I was going to do something different. No more games, no more gimmicks, no more detoxes, no more teas, no more waist trainers, none of that. Just good, clean, quality food, building healthy habits, building a healthy routine, and having that mindset that I'm just gonna do what I'm supposed to do to lose weight and the results will follow. I'm not gonna focus on the results. I'm gonna focus on the action that it takes to get the results. And at the end of the day, I was successful at losing the 90 pounds. I've been able to keep that weight off. Even when my weight has fluctuated, I'm able to keep my weight in check because I go back to those good healthy habits. I go back to that nutritious eating, and I go right back to that mindset of no more day ones. We're just not starting over. We're just continuing on. If this video has been helpful to you, take a moment and give it a thumbs up so that I know that you like this type of content and I'll make more of it. And if you haven't joined the Get Fit community yet, take a moment and hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you here as part of this community. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.